is Martin. I am from Kenya. I have been here for 1 year. I'm doing a master's in the Department of Popular Culture. This fall I'll be starting my second and last year of my master's studies here at Bowling Green State University.
Hi, I'm Laura O'Brien. I live in Bowling Green, Ohio. I'm a graduate from Bowling Green State University.
Hi, my name is Joyce Okango and I am from Kenya.
My first question to you is, what do you think of when you hear the word cosmopolitanism?
So when I hear about the word cosmopolitanism, I think about somebody who is conversant with a lot of languages, for instance, cultures, and somebody who is just knowledgeable about the world in general.
I think of somebody who's like very something really hip and trendy. I feel like live in New York City. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but
Yeah.
I think someone. I don't know, it's a city person. I almost feel like that's kind of how I feel. Okay.
At first, when I heard anything cosmopolitan, I would tell you it means a place where people from many different regions or ethnic backgrounds are residing together, they interact and such kind of thing.
Yeah.
So mostly I used to associate it with places. So I never thought people could be termed as cosmopolitan until I realized that cosmopolitanism is an ideology that embraces someone who thinks that they should be, or they think they can be like everyone else, despite the fact that they do not maybe belong to the same race with them, the same ethnic background with them, and so on. So yeah, it's like I have come to a kind of realization what it really is.
Yeah. Are there like specific things or characteristics of a person you would associate with that idea, like what they wear or how they speak, things like that?
I guess what I was before, very like up to date with like usually how they look, like how they dress and the way they do their hair, and someone who's very trendy and knows what goes together and what is the latest fashion, things like that.
So for me, when I associate that term with a person, I think of someone who is elite, educated, because for you, that's one way of it. Like when in the academia, that's how I can relate the word cosmopolitanism with it. But when I think of it in another way, I think any person can be cosmopolitan regardless of their academic standards or whatsoever, because there are people who have never gone to school, for example in Kenya, but they know like 3 languages and they know a lot of cultures, and their values are really deeply rooted in those cultures. So I would say that it goes two-way. I think especially when you think about Western versus third world countries, for instance, or Africa.
I think someone with cosmopolitan is able to embrace or to think of people not based on just what he himself or she herself believes in or think is the right thing or such kind of things. I think someone who is cosmopolitan can be of a certain faith. For example, they could be a Christian, and they might not think that only Christians are right in how they view things.
Yeah.
Someone who is cosmopolitan is able to embrace people of other faiths, for example, people of other nationalities, people of other ethnic backgrounds, But someone who is not is likely to be more subjective and more biased for that matter. Yeah.
Does that mean like to be cosmopolitan you have to have a lot of money, or you have to belong to like a particular group or something like that?
I feel like money probably helps with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't expect to hear someone who's in the city as near cosmopolitan. I feel like you're like, yeah, that person's super cosmopolitan. Which I don't know that's a phrase that's said very often, but I guess a certain amount of money comes with it, a certain type of work goes with it. White collar work, I feel like, goes with that. So, trendy businessman living in New York City in a high rise.
Yeah.
If you call it cosmopolitan, I'd probably agree with you.
Yeah. So, do you think it would be difficult for somebody who lives in, Western Ohio or even Bowling Green, Ohio, for that matter? If somebody lives in a small town, do you think it would be difficult for them to reach that?
Yeah, I think it's very
Yeah.
strange to call somebody from Bowling Green, Ohio, or what was the other city you said?
Western, it's like a
Weston.
small town.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect them to be like, yeah, I don't think we could be accurately called that from being from there.
Yeah.
I don't think you could call me that. Oh yeah, she's super cosmopolitan. I don't think that's what people would call me.
Yeah. So, have you seen some difference in the attitude of people, from place to place? For example, somebody who lives in Nairobi might be facing, or might be familiar with so many different cultures and languages, because it's a big city, lots of people. Whereas somebody living in a small place might not have the same exposure. So
Yeah,
do you think there's some difference?
absolutely. Absolutely. So what happens in Kenya, let's say if you go to cities, most likely, I think to me what I have experienced, it goes the opposite way.
Oh.
So when you go to Nairobi, you lose languages, and even if you look at children who are raised up in Nairobi, they can't speak these other languages. So the more you move to the metropolitan cities, the more you lose these languages and cultures. So you adapt these urban cultures and all those ways of life. And if you move down to like rural areas, like outskirts of the city, you acquire more like your language, your culture. So that's how I think it works in Kenya. That's from my view, and having actually lived in both sides, I can definitely see that. And having like family members who live and have kids who like give birth to children in Nairobi, I can definitely see the difference between them and me, because they can't speak any language because of how they interact with other kids in school who cannot speak any other language. So the parents just decide to teach them the national language, which is Swahili, and the official language, which is English. So yeah.
I'll speak in respect to myself, because I was born and raised in the countryside, a part of Kenya that is in the eastern side of Kenya, a city called Meru. It is majorly, the people who live in Meru, and especially the countryside, are majorly from one specific community. My community, which also gives the area its name. It's the Meru community. People speaking the language Kimeru, the language of the people there. Most of the time that is what is done, because almost everyone is a Meru. People practice the same kind of economic activities like farming and maybe running businesses here and there. So people are predominantly doing the same kind of things most of the times. about 7 years I was living in Nairobi, although I was traveling back and forth from Nairobi. And I realized there is a big difference. People in Nairobi are more exposed. People in Nairobi are not from one community. People they are from different communities. I for one, when I went to campus, in my first year of study, one of my roommates was from a community called Turkana. The other one from a community called the Luo. And the other one was from a community called the Luya. All of them, all of us were from these different places. So the four of us were sharing one room, and we were from all these different communities. Each of us had different kind of practices.
Yeah.
When it comes, for example, to initiation, every one of us had their way of doing it. We could not speak Kimeru, my language.
Yeah.
We had to speak either Swahili, because that's a language that is understood all over Kenya, or English. And most of the times, the slang, the slang that is very common in Kenya, that is known as Sheng. So you see, and then I started realizing these people are not thinking the same way I think about various things. I thought, wow, they are wrong.
Yeah.
But then with time I realized, no, they may not be necessarily wrong. They may be right in another manner. It's only that, I'm not used to their way of doing things.
Yeah. One culture that's kind of dominating, and then other like smaller cultures kind of like at the margins, they're like, hey, we're also here, but not really in the big deals.
In terms of people considered cosmopolitan, I feel like a lot of times you're going to see upper class white Americans.
Yeah.
In the terms of we're kind of describing, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the group that's able to break in to be able to be considered cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
But once you're like, oh yeah, I've seen a lot of Greek people, I definitely consider them cosmopolitan, But I don't think there's a culture that has an influence on an area of cosmopolitan either. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that of Nairobi.
Okay.
I would say that of a place like Mombasa.
Mm-hmm.
Mombasa is a coastal town,
Mm.
where where the people who used to live there before it became so cosmopolitan were the Swahili.
Mm.
And the dominant language in Mombasa is Swahili.
Mm.
And it's something they are proud of. It's because Swahili is big in East Africa, and there is Swahili food. There is so much about Swahili that people kind of like.
Yeah.
So most people who go to Mombasa, even those who might not like speaking in Swahili, find themselves doing it, and even being proud of it. And when they go back to the countryside, they speak in, the Mombasa Swahili, especially if they've been there for some time. So the culture in Mombasa dominates others that come in.
Mm. Yeah.
That's different in Nairobi.
Okay.
In Nairobi, it's like a new culture gets born.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's a culture, I would say, of the young people.
Mm.
Because it's mostly the young people who use the slang I told you about.
Yeah.
So you will find even the older guys, the people who are in their 50s and all that, trying to speak Sheng.
Mm. Mm.
And people from Luo land, for example, they don't come here and start speaking in Luo unless they meet someone who is a Luo.
Mm.
But then you would not say their culture is dominating.
Mm.
In Nairobi, I would say it's a different culture altogether. Like it's a culture that is being born, and it's like,
Yeah, so Swahili and English are have really dominated all the other languages, I would say, like by far. If you compare it to 10 years ago, I think you could say by 80 or 90%, especially in the capital city. Because what happens is when these people move from these rural areas to urban areas, they try to like raise their kids, their children in the modern way, like the town way of life. They don't want them to they don't value like these traditional languages more because they put more focus on English and Swahili, especially with globalization and the idea that English is going to be a global language everyone has to know. So that has really affected the language, especially in Nairobi, and a lot of people don't want to expose their children to other languages. Another thing that has contributed to that is intermarriages. So when they move to these cities like Nairobi, they find people from different tribes, as opposed to just when you live in your small town or in a village where people are from the same tribe as you just marry from your same tribe and you can speak the same language. So when people move to these metropolitan towns in search of jobs and all that, they end up intermarrying with people from different tribes. So you end up marrying somebody from a different, who speaks a different language from you, and that contributes to children losing their, we call like tribal languages.
How do you think international students have assimilated into BD? You think they're doing fine?
I think they do fine. I think in the beginning they struggle, just like anybody would. But it seems like everyone kind of picks up and they figure out what their version of American culture is. It's not cut and dry. It's not this is American culture, and if you do this, you are American. I think they find their version where they take our American influences that they're seeing, they're living around, and they take their own culture and they kind of make their own version of how they're gonna live and how they're gonna combine the two. In the beginning, they haven't figured out a lot of American culture, so then it's hard to figure out how am I gonna fit in? How am I gonna? Not that you have to fit in, but to an extent you do. You can't just go on living one way, but everyone else is living another way. You need to try. It's not very easy. I can imagine.
Okay.
If there's anything else that you'd like to say, you're free to say, but I don't have any other questions.
So in regard to cosmopolitanism, assimilation, I think that colonialism was negative, and it had a lot of negative effects to the country, Kenya, that are being felt up to date. Colonialism brought Western education, which many people confuse with civilization. They think that Western education is civilization. I don't think so, because civilization is not doing things my way. And so the white guys wanted us to believe that you are doing this because you're primitive. What's primitivity? And they wanted to say, you people are doing this. We do things this way because we are the civilized guys here. So I don't think that there is anything really about civilization that I don't consider Western education to be civilization. It's good. It's something that helped us to connect with the rest of the world, but it's not equatable to civilization as an aspect.
So people's view really differ. So if you interviewed somebody else from Kenya, be sure our views might be very different because of where somebody was raised, the socio-economic status of how they were brought up. The views kind of vary a lot depending on where how and socioeconomic status where
Yeah.
they went to school.
Yeah.
So people tend to have like very different views on issues, be it social, political, language, culture. It really varies a lot. So I think
Yeah.
you should, if you're doing an interview with other Kenyans, you should try to look at that differences and how we answer your questions. I think that would be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.